Your wife burns rice. My son will starve with a woman who can't even boil water properly. My mother-in-law announced at Sunday dinner, her voice carrying across the table with practiced cruelty, while my husband's sisters giggled behind their napkins like it was the funniest joke they'd heard all week. I don't understand why you married someone so useless in the kitchen. A woman who can't cook is barely a woman at all. I smiled and cleared the plates as I'd done for 3 years of these dinners, saying nothing, defending nothing. Because my husband Marcus sat beside me in silence every time, never once standing up to tell his family they were wrong. What none of them knew, what I'd kept secret through 3 years of humiliation, was that I wasn't a woman who couldn't cook. I was a classically trained chef who'd graduated top of my class at the Culinary Institute of America, and the burned rice they mocked was a deliberate choice to see if anyone in this family was worth my real cooking. The test had started on our 3rd date. Marcus had brought me to his parents' house for Sunday dinner. Too early in a relationship, I'd thought, but he'd insisted his family was close and wanted to meet anyone he was serious about. I'd offered to bring something. His mother, Evelyn, had suggested a simple rice dish. Nothing fancy. Let's see what you can do with basics. It had felt like a test even then. So I decided to run a test of my own. I'd deliberately overcooked the rice. Not burned exactly, but mushy, stuck together. Clearly the work of someone who didn't know their way around a kitchen. I'd wanted to see how the family would react to imperfection. The reaction had been vicious. Evelyn had made a face like she'd bitten into something rotten. Marcus's sisters, Dominique and Priscilla, had exchanged looks of superiority. His father had pushed the rice to the side of his plate without comment. And Marcus? Marcus had said nothing. Not a word in my defense. Not even a polite acknowledgement that I'd made an effort. I'd learned everything I needed to know about this family in that single moment. A smarter woman would have walked away. Instead, I'd married him. Why? Because I was 26 and in love and convinced that Marcus was different when we were alone. He was kind, attentive, seemingly devoted. I'd told myself his silence at family dinners was just conflict avoidance, not agreement. I'd told myself a lot of things. The Sunday dinners continued after our wedding, and so did the mockery. Every week, Evelyn found new ways to criticize my cooking, even when I wasn't the one who'd prepared the meal. I made this roast, Evelyn would announce, presenting a perfectly adequate but uninspired piece of meat. Since we all know Elena can't manage anything beyond toast. The sisters would laugh. Marcus would eat in silence, and I would clear plates and wash dishes and smile until my face ached. I never cooked for them again. Why would I? They'd already decided who I was. Proving them wrong wouldn't change anything. It would just give them new ammunition. Oh, so now she thinks she can cook? After years of admitting she's hopeless? Someone's getting ideas above her station. I knew how it would go, so I kept my secret. The restaurant started as an escape. 2 years into my marriage, I'd taken a job as a sous chef at a small bistro downtown. Just to get out of the house, I'd told Marcus. He hadn't objected. He was traveling frequently for work by then, and I think he was relieved I'd found something to occupy my time. What I didn't tell him was that within 6 months, I'd been promoted to head chef. Within a year, the owner had offered me a partnership. Within 18 months, I'd bought him out entirely and renamed the restaurant. Orleans opened quietly without fanfare. I didn't advertise, didn't seek press coverage, didn't tell anyone in Marcus's family. The restaurant built its reputation through word of mouth. Diners who'd experienced something extraordinary and couldn't stop talking about it. My cooking was everything I'd never shown my in-laws. Refined, innovative, technically flawless. I drew on my classical training but pushed beyond it, creating dishes that honored tradition while reimagining what food could be. The tasting menu changed seasonally. Regulars came back monthly to see what I'd created. The reviews started appearing in local publications. Then regional ones. Then national food magazines. Still, I said nothing at Sunday dinners. I hear there's a new restaurant downtown, Dominique mentioned once. Supposed to be impossible to get reservations. Some woman chef, probably sleeping with a critic. I smiled and cleared the plates. The Michelin inspector came on a Tuesday in November. I didn't know it was an inspector at first. They travel anonymously, posing as regular diners. But something about the woman at table 7 caught my attention. The way she examined each course, the notes she typed into her phone, the systematic approach to tasting every element. I cooked for her as I cooked for everyone, with total commitment, absolute precision, and the love I'd never been allowed to show my husband's family. When she left, she asked to speak with the chef. I came out of the kitchen, still in my whites, suddenly nervous in a way I hadn't been in years. "This was extraordinary," she said simply. "Truly extraordinary." 3 months later, the Michelin Guide announced the city's first 3-star restaurant. It was mine. The Times coverage was extensive. A full-page feature in the food section, with photographs of me in my kitchen, descriptions of signature dishes, the story of how a small downtown restaurant had achieved the culinary world's highest honor. I hadn't told Marcus. I hadn't told anyone in his family. I'd compartmentalized so completely that my 2 lives never touched. The silent wife who couldn't cook and the celebrated chef who'd just made history. The morning the paper came out, Marcus was sitting at the breakfast table when I came downstairs. He was holding the Times. My face stared up from the front page of the food section. "Is this you?" His voice was strange, not angry, not proud, something unreadable. "Yes. You own a 3-star Michelin restaurant." "Yes. You've owned it for 3 years." "Yes. And you never told me." I sat down across from him, suddenly exhausted by 3 years of silence. "Would you have believed me? Would your mother have believed me? I've spent 3 years being told I can't boil water, Marcus. 3 years of your family mocking me while you sat there saying nothing. I never thought they were serious. They were serious. And so was your silence." I gestured at the newspaper. "This is who I actually am. This is what I can actually do. But you never asked. You just accepted their version of me because it was easier than standing up to your mother." Marcus stared at the paper, at my picture, at the glowing review describing dishes he'd never tasted. "I didn't know. You didn't want to know. There's a difference." He drove to his mother's house that afternoon. I didn't know what he was planning. Part of me assumed he'd join them in mockery. Some new angle about how I'd deceived everyone. How the whole thing must be a scam. How a woman who burned rice couldn't possibly be a real chef. Instead, he showed them the Times. I know this because Evelyn called me 3 hours later, her voice shaking with something I'd never heard before, uncertainty. "Is this true? This restaurant, it's really yours. It's really mine. But you, all those dinners, you never. I never cooked for you after that first time. You'd already decided who I was. I didn't see the point in arguing. But why didn't you tell us? Why did you let us believe? I didn't let you believe anything. You chose to believe I was incompetent because it made you feel superior. You never once asked about my background, my training, my interests. You just decided I wasn't good enough for your son and spent 3 years confirming that belief." Marcus is very upset. Marcus has been silent at every dinner while you mocked me. He's allowed his mother to humiliate his wife for 3 years without saying a word. His being upset now doesn't erase that. He wants to talk to you. Then he knows where I live. Marcus came home that night looking like a man who'd been through a war. "I told them," he said. "I told them they'd been cruel and wrong, and that I'd been a coward for not stopping it." "What did they say?" My mother cried. She said she was just having fun and never meant any harm. My sisters said they were just following Mom's lead. He sat down heavily. "They want to come to the restaurant. To see for themselves." "No. Elena. Your family spent 3 years telling me I was worthless. They don't get to waltz into my restaurant now that I'm famous and pretend none of it happened. They want to apologize. Do they? Or do they want to be seen at the city's hottest reservation? There's a 3-month waiting list, Marcus. Suddenly your mother wants to experience my cooking." He was quiet for a long moment. "What about me? What about you? I've never eaten your food. In 3 years of marriage, I've never tasted what you can really do." His voice cracked. "You hid this whole part of yourself from me. An entire life I didn't know existed. You never asked. I told you I was working at a restaurant. You never came to see it, never asked questions, never seemed curious about what I was doing with my time. You were content with the wife your mother thought you'd married. I want to understand now. Why? Because I'm successful? Because there's a picture in the Times? If I'd failed, if the restaurant had closed and I'd come home defeated, would you have cared then?" He didn't have an answer. The marriage didn't survive. Not because of the revelation, but because of everything the revelation exposed. The years of silence. The fundamental lack of curiosity. The way Marcus had allowed his family's cruelty to become our normal. "I was proud of you," he said the night I asked for a divorce. "I just didn't know how to show it against my mother's expectations. Being proud in private doesn't count if you're silent in public. Your family needed to see you choose me, Marcus. Just once. And you never did. I'm choosing you now. Now it's easy. Now there's a Michelin star and a Times feature, and everyone knows I'm not the woman who burns rice. But I needed you to choose me when it was hard, when all the evidence seemed to support your mother's narrative. That's when it would have mattered. The divorce was finalized 8 months later. Marcus got the house, I got the restaurant. It felt like a fair trade. Evelyn requested a reservation 6 months after the divorce. I saw her name on the books and almost denied it. Then I reconsidered. I cooked for her that night, not out of forgiveness, but out of something else. Pride, maybe. The desire to show her exactly what she'd dismissed for 3 years. The tasting menu that evening included a rice dish, a delicate jasmine preparation infused with saffron, topped with shaved truffle and edible flowers. It was, according to my sous chef, one of the best things I'd ever created. When Evelyn finished the meal, she asked to see me. I came to her table still in my chef's whites, just as I had for the Michelin inspector. She stopped, seemingly unable to find words. I had no idea you could do this. You had no interest in finding out. I was wrong. About all of it. Yes, you were. Can you forgive me? I considered the question carefully. I can understand you. I can recognize that you were protecting your son in the only way you knew how, by trying to control who he married. But forgiveness implies reconciliation, and I'm not interested in that. We're not going to be family, Evelyn. That ship sailed years ago. What about Marcus? He misses you. Marcus had 3 years to stand up for me. He chose silence. That's not a man I can build a life with. I returned to my kitchen, leaving her with the bill and the weight of understanding exactly what her cruelty had cost. The restaurant is busier than ever now. I've expanded to a second location, started a cookbook, been featured in documentaries about women in culinary arts. The woman who burns rice has become a symbol of something larger. The competence that families refuse to see, the potential that gets dismissed, the success that blooms despite disdain. Last month, I received a letter from Marcus. He's remarried, a woman his mother approves of, someone who fits the family mold. He wanted me to know he's sorry, that he thinks about me often, that he's tried to be better with his new wife. I didn't respond. Some chapters closed completely. But I kept the letter, tucked inside my copy of the Michelin Guide. A reminder of where I started, and how far I've come. They said I couldn't cook. Now I'm the city's first 3-star chef. They said I was barely a woman. Now I'm a legend. And the rice? I make it perfectly. I always could.